If you're ready to stand on the line, if you're ready to fight back and serve it to the criminals trying to enslave you and steal your wealth through monetary creation and exorbitant taxation, you're in the right place. Welcome back to another edition of the Prepper Recon Podcast. Whether your plan is to bug out or bug in, CampingSurvival.com has all of your preparedness needs, including fish antibiotics, long-term storage food, water filters, bug-out bags, and first aid kits. Use coupon code PrepperRecon for 5% off your entire order at CampingSurvival.com. While you're at PrepperRecon.com, stop by the Prepper Recon supply store. We've got a great selection of Molly compression packs, hydration kits, and our new concealed carry tactical slings. All the packs and slings come with your choice of patch to let liberals know how you feel. We have some very cool Moulin Lab patches, Come and Take It patches, Sheepdog, Zombie Response Team, and matching U.S. flag patches. Of course, we still have our fully stocked Molly-compatible individual first aid kits as well. Just click the Store tab at the top of the PrepperRecon.com homepage. Today's guest is Dana Morrison. Dana, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you. Good to be here.
Oh, absolutely. It's an absolute pleasure to talk to you. And we've been speaking back and forth through email, and we finally get a chance to talk. And you've got some really great information for our listeners, and so I'm really happy to have you on. Now, can you just tell us briefly about yourself, basically your background in technology, and what woke you up to the need to prepare?
Well, I've been in technology for 15 years, grew up in Maine, worked in technology in the education field specifically. So I've seen a lot of this evolve over time as far as the technical side of things. A good friend who I worked with at the previous school I was at he's quite a prepper, and he really, even though mentally through conversations with my dad and family and just kind of looking at the world stage and seeing where things were headed, he kind of poked and prodded me a little bit more to just kind of dig in and do some research. So that's kind of I've been in technology, and this guy just happened to be, God puts all these pieces in the right place at the right time. And so that's kind of how I ended up getting more onto the, prepper aspect of things.
Yeah, God does. He lines all that up for us, because if it was up to me, I wouldn't have any of this stuff going at all. I don't know where I'd be. In a mess, I'm sure. Now, I'm sure you keep up with the news, and recently we've had sermon notes of pastors subpoenaed. We've had bakers, florists, wedding chapels, and photographers forced to perform services for gay couples against their will. Are Christians being marginalized, demonized, or are we in for a full-scale persecution?
I think we've got a lot coming down the pike that we're just starting to get the whiff of. The smell has been in the air for a while, but it's kind of like now we're getting to be really strong. And it's funny you mentioned all these news tidbits. Yesterday I went on Fox News, and I just printed their home screen into a PDF file. I was just looking down through all of this stuff. I was like, I got to save this page from today, because this was yesterday that I did this, and there was just so many things that were hitting the front page of the news. There was the Paris attack. There was, I don't know, I can't think of them all right now off the top of my head, but if you look down through, it seems like, one of today's titles was that God removed again from the Pledge of Allegiance. We see this trend where I think it's due to our moral decay, obviously, where we're going back to God's giving us over to ourselves. And I think you see the same sorts of parallels, unfortunately, when you look at pre-World War II Germany. and you look at the track that Hitler took after he took over the country. And it wasn't, all out persecution of the Jews right off the bat. It all happened subtly over time. And you look at that, and some great resources to look into is Bonhoeffer by Eric Metaxas, and another book, Auschwitz by Joel Rosenberg. Even though Auschwitz was a fictional book by Rosenberg, it really puts things in perspective. You kind of get you look at these things, and man, the country and where we're at, and how blind the Germans were to the things that were just on the horizon, and how blind America is to these same things. I just see this. I see it coming. And I think the technology that we have right now that is at the government's disposal is just absolutely incredible. You talking about the Snowden leaks and all of that. You look at that stuff and you say, well, what if Hitler had access to those sorts of technologies? Would he have been able to have carried out, obviously, without divine intervention, the annihilation of the Jews? I think those tools would have been really, really huge for somebody like him to have had. And you look at our government today, and you see this massive tool set that these guys have. And this is really, really scary stuff.
It is. It's absolutely a turnkey totalitarian state. And another parallel that I think that the present administration gets a lot of folks looking at parallels, but for somebody that could come along in the future, Hitler came in as sort of an economic savior, because the economic perils that Germany was in after the failure of their currency due to hyperinflation, due to overprinting of their money. And there's certainly the parallels there. Now, I was doing some research on my new book, the Days of Noah series, which will be titled Persecution, ironically, since that's kind of the subject of our discussion today. And I was looking at the Southern Poverty Law Center site. One of the 3 featured profiles on their extremist files was Tim Wildman, who's the president of the American Family Association. AFA simply asked Christians to take a stand against immorality, but the Southern Poverty Law Center considers them dangerous. Ironically, Bill Ayers, who bombed police stations, the Pentagon, and even the Capitol building, he's not even listed on the SPLC site. But these people have the ear of DHS, and the government holds SPLC's opinion in high regard. Other groups that the SPLC is concerned about are patriot groups, Tea Party groups, and those who oppose illegal immigration, those who oppose abortion, Agenda 21, or homosexual agendas being taught to school children. This pretty much puts every believer on the SPLC watch list, and therefore on the government watch list. What do you think the modern day persecution could look like for believers in the U.S.?
Well, that's loaded. And can we go back just a step? Because we're not facing anything in our day and age today that early believers did not face back in biblical times. So if we can go back for just a minute, I want to hit on a couple things because I think these tie right in.
Absolutely.
And I've heard you say on the show before that Joseph was a prepper. Joseph was a great example of a prepper, and he certainly is a great example there. But Jesus was a prepper too. He invested his life in his disciples. He prepared himself to do the will of the Father. The disciples were preppers. They poured their lives into the lives of other people. They were prepared for the ultimate end, which is martyrdom for, I think, all but John, right, who ended up on the Isle of Patmos. And God warned Israel to prepare themselves against the angel of death when they were in Egypt, right? We have parables about prepping. We have the virgins and the lamps of oil. We have the parable of the talent, another great prepper passage. The ultimate prepper passage, I think, for believers is the Sermon on the Mount. I think Jesus was preparing us all for his work and what that would look like. So the Bible is riddled throughout with great passages on preparing, which some people look at the word prepper and they instantly think somebody who hoards up food, somebody who's got a closet full of guns and ammunition. And that's not necessarily the case. I think when we look at what a prepper is a prepper is really somebody who is prepared for whatever circumstance they think, in a spiritual sense, that the Lord is preparing them for. So I want to throw out three things real quick that I think that as a Christian prepper, my prepping should. The prepping I embrace should glorify the Lord. I think the prepping I embrace should be led by the Lord. And I think the prepping I embrace should draw me closer to God and his will. And I think as a believer, if you can align yourself with this and align yourself with Christ as the ultimate prepper, right? Because he's the one who's going to end up bringing you out of this circumstance. We know that the world isn't our home. But if this is all you have in life and this is all you think you're ever going to have, then I can so totally understand the scared, suck up everything you can possibly get so you can preserve however many days you have left on this earth. I get that. So there's people prep for other reasons, and I understand it. Now, getting back to the original question, like what this could look like for believers. As we look, you mentioned Germany, the economy and all of that. I think we're dangerously close to becoming another Germany here. The technology that is at the disposal of whoever is in power is pretty incredible. You talk about identifying. You talked about that list, identifying people who are being known. How is that? What's the title of that list again? You mentioned
it was the Southern Poverty Law Center's extremist files.
Okay, so I'm obviously an extremist. I would most definitely fall into some category of theirs that says I'm an extremist. Probably a lot of it is due to the fact that I'm not a liberal. I don't like government control, and saying these things on a broadcast will certainly raise some add some points to my file, probably if I have a file. I doubt I do, but I think when you look at what all of these technologies and what they're capable of, you see databases being created instantly. I mean, based off of certain criteria, somebody can form a database really quick, have it scour the net, have it pull off websites, information, email addresses, all sorts of things that tie together. So imagine if Hitler had that sort of technology at his disposal. This was in paper, but they did. They Hitler put the Jews out of business. He marked their businesses, and shut them down, and then eventually, obviously, the mass slaughtering. But all of this technology, everything that we have, Snowden's leaks released a lot of eye-opening stuff that I thought was, there's no way that's true. Things like that your camera could just be turned on remotely on your phone. I mean, who really believed that, right? There's the light, right? The light tells you when your camera's on, right? But Android operating system, iOS, all of these things, they have security flaws in them, and some of them are even there by design. I believe they're there by design. And these controls now exist it becomes very difficult to get rid of them. So I think we're very easy to identify. It's very easy to come up with some criteria that you want to fit and develop a huge list of people that are in your way. And that's, I think, pretty scary, especially when you see the amount of control and all of this stuff about the internet control and everything. You know, we can be tagged in a heartbeat.
And then going back to what we were saying about the persecution of the Jews and the way that they were basically put out of business first. Now, that didn't all happen in the matter of a couple of weeks. This is something that went on for years and years and years, to where they were just getting marginalized and pushed to the side, and nobody said anything all the way up until the time that they were getting pushed into the cattle car. And at that point, it's really too late. And at that point, they were conditioned, because there's photographs of the Jews being loaded into the cattle cars. And what you'll typically see is you'll see one or two officers there with just a sidearm pistol that at that time probably, I guess, a German Luger. I'm not sure what the magazine capacity is for a German Luger, which I'm sure was their sidearm, but I'm sure it's 12 shots or less. And you'll typically see maybe one or two of them sort of monitoring the loading of the cattle cars, and they're loading 40, 50, 100 Jews on the cattle cars, and there's very, very little supervision. And I mean, if they hadn't have been so conditioned by that point, they could have very easily overtaken those few officers and wrestled their guns away, or, if a few people had to die, so what? Because they were heading towards the ovens anyway, and all the way up until the time that they were put into the gas chambers, which they were told were showers. So they were lied to all the way to the end. And nobody ever really spoke up, and I was amazed. I mean, I wonder if those Jews would have heard about the Snowden leaks, would they have been in the streets? I don't know if they would have been as complacent as the American public was, because we heard really nothing out of the American public over the Snowden leaks. I mean, it got very little play in the news in the grand scheme of things, and people just kind of went on about their business. Now, what are some ways that the believer can take precautions today to get communications that are below the radar?
Yeah, and I believe along the lines with the Snowden leaks, I think that same apathy. I think we're still incredibly apathetic. I think when you look at, has there been a massive response to Snowden leaks?
No, we're becoming more and more conditioned.
Oh, we've gone the other way again. When it first came out, it was hitting, everybody was blogging about it. The news was hitting some of this stuff. And then after a little bit of time, it's like, it's just the way things are. It's just the way the NSA is. They're just going to listen in. It doesn't really matter. There's nothing I can do. So yeah, there are some things you can do. Okay, and I'm going to give you 4 big ways that you can be a little bit proactive. Now, security is always going to have a certain level of inconvenience. It's just the way it is, right? When you think of a weak password and a strong password is typically going to be a little bit harder to remember, because maybe you stuck some special characters, some commas, dashes, different things in there that make that password what it is. So what we're talking about here is not just simply flipping open your computer and getting online. We're talking about just some basic precautions. I think some of these precautions, I think you could even go back to Scripture, and I think you can parallel taking a sort of precautionary step with your communication, the same way that Jesus took precautions when he was not ready to be identified by a certain group of people. Sometimes when he did miracles, he told the person, "Hey, go quietly this way." Sometimes you find Jesus avoided the crowds. So I think as a wise believer, you need to do some things to avoid the crowds. You have in Acts, you have Paul getting ready to go before the Ephesians in their big arena, and they're all shouting praise to Diana, and he's getting ready to go out before them. And then the other disciples stop him and say, hey, you know what? This is our battle to fight. And they kept him from doing that, and he embraced them later. And I kind of look at that passage as he's like saying, hey, thank you. So you have to pick your fight. You have to know what your fight is. If you don't know what your fight is, you better be awful careful, because you could just put information out there that could be misused, abused, whatever. But I'm going to give you four ways. One is using an operating system called Tails. And then with Tails OS, you can browse the internet under the radar. Another method is of secure communications can be email. We'll talk about that. Another one is chat, secure chat, off-the-record chat, and also ways to secure your phone communications. So those are four big things that you can do. You can do these things pretty much right now. You can get started. Okay,
now what's Tails? Can you explain that to us a little bit?
Okay, so when you take your laptop at home and you boot it up, or desktop, whatever, there's an operating system that turns on with the computer. You see the Windows logo coming up, you see the Apple logo, or if you're a Linux guy like I am, you turn on your computer and you see, Ubuntu Linux or whatever loading up on your screen. So you have this operating system layer, which basically gives you all the functionality in the computer that you move the mouse, you click on things are visual on your screen. The problem with your typical operating system is that all your information gets stored and saved on that hard drive on your computer. Almost certainly, everything you do is being accounted for locally on your computer. The websites you visit, the things that you bookmark, the email sites you go to, the emails that you download, all of those things happen there. So what Tails does, it's called an amnesiac operating system. So it's your operating system with amnesia, okay? It runs independently of any files that you save, store, bookmarks, email, places you go, whatever. Everything is stored independently. So Tails OS can go just like on a little memory stick. You plug this memory stick into your computer, and you boot up from this memory stick, this USB stick. You can also do it with a DVD, but who wants to carry around a big CD? That's just ridiculous, I think. So you put it on a little memory stick, you boot up from your memory stick, and when you shut down the computer, there's nothing additional stored anywhere. There's nothing on your hard drive, and the only additional files that would be on your memory stick would be things that you deliberately told that you wanted to save there. And even that is encrypted. So it requires a password to unlock that portion of your memory stick. So it's this little secure place to work, basically.
Now, am I going to be able to run that over top of all of my other programs? So let's say I'm typing a document in Word. Can I run Word and it's kind of Tails is just like a security layer over top of that?
No, Tails is its own animal. Okay, so you're not going to run Word. You're not going to run your Mac Mail. You're not going to run your Chrome browser. It's its own environment, but it does have an Office suite built in. So if you did want to type up a document and save it just locally on your Tails thumb drive using the encrypted partition that it sets up, then you can do that. And you could open a Word document, certainly. You could get a Word document from a secure email account or some location online, and you could open up that document, and you could edit that, and you could save it locally. But it doesn't have all that headache of trying to actually physically secure your laptop or desktop computer. Everything on your laptop or desktop, all somebody's got to do is take the hard drive out. They walk away with your hard drive. They walk away with your life, really. Nowadays, maybe your social security number, maybe credit card information, all of those sorts of things are on your hard drive, on your big computer. So this is a encrypted way to get around that.
Now, does it have a browser built in?
Yep, it does. It has a browser built in, and it uses a connection called Tor. Now, Tor, T-O-R, you can get Tor for your PC, Mac, even your Android phone. I don't know if iOS has it too, but Tor browser is a browser that what it does is it connects to an encrypted network that transfers information all across the U.S. and overseas. There's Tor nodes. Nodes just basically a place designed by Tor to information will travel through. So it travels through these nodes to get to its final destination, and it's encrypted. So in order for somebody to find out where that traffic was coming from, they'd actually have to decrypt the information from each of those nodes and backtrack all those pieces of information. But anyway, back to the browser. Yes, there's a browser there. Some things aren't going to maybe work as smooth as what you're used to, like loading a page even, because it's taking a longer route, so there's a lot of latency. But all of your basic browsing, I think even so far as being able to play like YouTube clips and things like that, I think all of that works just fine inside a Tor browser on Tails.
Awesome. Now, what do I need to get started using Tails and Tor?
Okay, 3 big things. Okay, got to get yourself a memory stick. You can build your own key, and I'm going to give a link at the end where I've compiled most of what we're talking about today and more on a single page, so somebody can peruse down through and cherry pick the things they might want to learn more about. But you want to get yourself a USB stick. I would recommend SP, Silicon Power. Silicon Power USB drives I've used personally. I know that they work great. They're cheap. Okay, you can buy a Silicon Power 4 gigabyte key for like $5.99. Okay, a 16 gigabyte key is like $11.99, something like that. So for like $12, $13 or less, you can go get yourself a USB drive that will work just fine with Tor. Another thing you want to do is you need to have a laptop, desktop, even an old computer. I have an old Lenovo T400, which I think is from like, it's like 7 or 8 years old, and that computer works just fine. So you can use even an older computer. Maybe you got a netbook kicking around that you thought you were going to use, but you never really used. You can use a netbook. You can use that desktop computer. So you got to have a device to be able to plug this thing into, and obviously you have to have an internet connection. But you also have you need to have the means to build that key. So to build that key, and we were talking about this a little bit before the show, but to build the key, you're going to want to download what's called an ISO from the Tails site. The link will be in the notes I give you at the end of the show. So you'll go to this Tails site, you'll download this ISO, but you also want to verify it, because you know what? Probably some government agencies are out there that kind of maybe don't want people using stuff like this to kind of get their stuff under the radar. So they do what's called a middleman attack, and they try and hijack a link maybe. And so you don't know if the one you've downloaded is really authentic. So you want to make sure that it's an authentic Tails ISO, and the instructions are on the Tails website. For some people, this might be like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Don't worry. All right. You can get a Tails USB key. We're going to talk about that again toward the end of the show. You can get a Tails USB key that's all ready to go. I would highly recommend you'll find them on eBay and probably find some third-party sellers on Amazon or some other sites that sell these things. You want to make sure that you're buying somebody who's actually authenticated that ISO and hasn't tampered with it. So you want to be careful about that. It's always best if you can do it yourself, but if you can't do it yourself, hopefully at least you trust me. I would build you a key and ship it to you to make sure that you were getting the most latest authorized version of Tails. And once you have the Tails USB key, then basically it's going into your computer settings to tell your computer to boot up from the USB drive, and then then you go. You connect to your wireless network, and it automatically gives you that encrypted connection and gets you started.
And just for the listeners out there, you weren't initially planning to sell these, but I kind of talked you into it because I know there's going to be a lot of listeners out there that are going to say, okay, that sounds really complicated. I'd rather give somebody $20 to do this for me because the time that's going to be involved for me to figure out all that you just said and to figure out how to do it is going to cost me a lot more in my time investment than $20. And you've said that you're going to try to do that and try to do it at a $20 price point.
Yeah. So a $20 for $20, a 4 gigabyte silicon power key. It's waterproof, although I wouldn't test the waterproof ability of these keys, even though they're really solid and they're built well. So for $20, get yourself a 4 gigabyte key. For $30, a 16 gigabyte key, and the 16 gigabyte is metal. It's really quite nice. We did talk about that because I think there is going to be a technical aspect. Now some geeks out there are going to listen to this, build an ISO and take it on there. Oh, no problem, I'll do that. But I do want to tell you something. Once you have one of these keys, it is so super simple to make more because you boot up from the one that you get, and then you go, there's a little application built into the key. So once it loads up and it looks like a regular desktop computer when it's loaded up, you go into the menu, there's a Tails menu, and you go to Tails Installer. And when you open up Tails Installer, you plug in a different USB stick that you want to make one, and you just run the little installer, and after about 3 or 4 minutes, it's all done, and you've got yourself another Tails key to maybe give to somebody that you want to communicate with. So if you got like 5 people in your little prepper group, or you got 5 people that you really think, man, we should really think about this, then you don't have to go out and buy 5 keys. You go buy 1 key, and the person in your group that's got the most technical know-how, have them go ahead and build the other keys so that it's done right, and there you go.
And then just to get a little clarification here, if I want to boot my computer into the Tails OS, I'm going to shut it off. I'm going to plug in the encrypted thumb drive, and when I turn the computer back on, it's automatically going to open up into the Tails.
When you turn on your computer, it depends how your computer's set up. I can tell you for sure on a MacBook, I'm sitting here on a MacBook Pro right now, and I know it's a 13-inch unibody MacBook Pro Core i5. So it's a little bit older, but it's still a very modern computer. And what I do is I take this USB stick, I plug it in. Now on the Mac, if you hold down the Option key after you've turned on your computer, you turn on your computer, hold Option. On the Mac, after you hold Option, you'll see this little thing come up, says different things that you can boot up to, and it will be there. It'll say like EFI boot or something like that. And so it'll show up as a little like USB kind of thing on your screen. And so you choose it and press enter, and it loads. And that's it. Now on a PC, PCs are so different. I mean, there's so many different kinds of PCs out there. On a lot of PCs, when you turn them on, they'll say like F12 boot menu when you first turn on the computer.
Yeah.
So if your computer says that, then you're going to tap the F12 key until you get the boot menu, and then choose USB. If you have a computer that doesn't give you the boot menu option, it might give you an option for what's called BIOS, BIOS, Basic Input Output System. And it'll say like tap F2 for BIOS, or press delete for BIOS, or press escape for BIOS. Or if you're on a Lenovo, it might have that little think button. If you're on a Lenovo laptop, there's like a think, I'm drawing a blank, think. It's a blue key on top of the keyboard, and it says think on it. That's all I can think of. And so you hold that down when you boot it up, and it will come up into this BIOS menu. And once you're in BIOS menu, you can go and find how it, and you can tell it to boot from the USB key. It's going to be like not using your mouse. It's going to be like using your keys on your keyboard and pressing F10 to save, but the instructions will be there on your screen to be able to do that.
Okay, because typically when I turn my computer on, if there's nothing in there, then it's just going to go straight to Windows.
Yeah.
But as long, but if the Tails OS keys plugged in, it's somehow going to give me that option to boot to that.
You're gonna go into your BIOS. If you're using a Windows PC, you're gonna go into your BIOS and you're gonna tell it to boot from USB before it boots from your hard drive. So you're gonna put USB higher than your hard drive on the list.
Okay.
And once you make that save, once you've changed that setting, it's gonna, when you first turn on your computer, it's gonna say, hey, do I have a key plugged in? Nope. Okay, I'm gonna boot Windows. But if it has a key plugged in, then it's just gonna go straight to the key, and you'll be all set. You won't have to change that again.
And then to get out of it, I'm going to have to shut my computer down, take out the USB, and then turn my computer back on.
Correct.
And then I'll be back into my regular Windows.
Yep.
Awesome. And so there's no way that anybody that's just barely computer literate like myself would be able to tear up their computer with this and get stuck in some kind of computer limbo to where they can't get back out.
Yeah, I don't think so, unless you really just kind of started just picking and clicking and doing all sorts of stuff when you were in your boot menu and you really jack things up. The worst you would have to do is go back into that boot menu again using the F2 escape or delete keys when you first turn on your computer, and go back in there and change them back to what they were. So before you make all these changes, you might want to just kind of chicken scratch a list down. Okay, well, first I'm booting from my hard drive, then it says CD DVD drive, and then it says USB drive. So you just want to make sure you get them in the right order. But as far as Tails goes, once you boot up in Tails, there's no way really for you in Tails to screw up your computer. So this doesn't modify anything. As a matter of fact, Tails doesn't even care if you have a hard drive plugged into your computer. All it cares about is, hey, is there a means that I can connect online so I can connect the Tor browser securely? And do you have a way to see it, the screen, and do you have a way to type it? That's basically all that the Tails operating system cares about.
It's time for a quick break, and we'll be right back. The dollar's lost over 90% of its purchasing power since 1971. Silver, on the other hand, has proved to be a very stable form of wealth preservation over the years. And where do you buy silver? Silver.com, of course. Silver.com offers fantastic prices on silver and gold. Check out Silver.com today.
You said it's in this amnesia mode, so how would you save something if it's forgetting everything?
Okay, so when you boot up into Tails, it first asks you if there are, it says, do you want extra options? That will show right up. It'll pop right up a little yes or no, okay? Do you want extra options? So if you say no, then nothing's ever going to save to that key, okay? So you could always just say no. You could always do that. That's totally fine. But if you do want to save, then when you see that extra options, you're going to say yes. And you can set up on there, you only have to do this once. You set up a mode called persistence. And what this does is it creates a portion of the USB stick that will save settings and information, like if you want to bookmark sites and all of that. So you set this up. It's going to ask you for a password. It's going to make you type it in twice, make sure you got it, okay? You want to pick a good one, and you might want to memorize it. I think passages of scripture make great passwords. You can make a password out of the first sentence of a verse and change the I's to ones and the E's to threes or whatever. So you tell it yes, you tell it you want to create persistence, and then every time you boot up, it will then ask you if you want extra options, and it will also say underneath that, do you want persistence? It detects that the persistence is already there on your key, but you still have to authenticate to it. So it's not like somebody can just take your key, plug it into their computer, and get in your stuff. They would have to know what that password is to get that access to that encrypted portion of the USB flash drive.
And then what are my communications options once I've got Tails OS set up?
Okay, so I've got two for you. One is Surefire Online right now. It's called SafeMail, safe-mail.net. Anytime you go to a mail site, you always want to use the HTTPS option, right? So it's going to be https://safe-mail.net. And again, this link will be in the link I give you at the end of the show here today. So you'll get this. You'll get all this information on there. SafeMail allows you to you can set up and here's what I would recommend, right? Develop an alias, and people, I think, sometimes raise their eyebrows for saying, "Oh, I'm going to develop an alias username and go secretive, undercover, off the grid." There's nothing wrong with using an alias name. There's nothing wrong with protecting your identity, and I think you need to be cautious on how that's perceived sometimes. But you want to be able to communicate securely. And if you're going to communicate securely, it's not like you can go around saying, "Hey, I'm Dana Morrison and my website is itechcentral.com." You have to kind of figure something out, methods to communicate there. So you never really want to use people's names when you communicate in a secure kind of mode. You don't want to use people's names. You want to use real phone numbers or somebody's normal everyday email address to respond to, any of that. You want to keep it kind of low key. You want the people that you communicate with to sort of have the same mindset as you do on this stuff, because somebody will just say something stupid someday, and all of a sudden you'll find yourself going to get a new email address. So you got to be careful about this stuff. Come up with a, excuse me, fighting a cold. Come up with a method of a naming convention, so to speak, so that you and your friends won't have to consult to a notebook every time you're trying to find their address. It's something that's going to be memorable, easy for you to memorize, right? So I use like my first two, or my first initial, my last name initial, and then maybe a number that goes in series at safe-mail.net, and then have somebody else, have the next person in your group create theirs with their initials, and then maybe the next number in sequence, so that it kind of gives it some sort of consistency, so you guys can remember pretty easy. So you're going to log in to SafeMail, and you're going to communicate there on an encrypted browser from a computer that doesn't remember where you went. That's a pretty good level of security right there, I think. I want to mention too, after you get the second option, I didn't even say anything about it, SafeMail, the second option is ProtonMail, protonmail.ch, and this will be in the notes as well. They're in beta testing right now, but their servers are located in Switzerland, and Switzerland has a high, how do you word it? They have privacy is really high on their list, to the effect that it's hard for U.S. government officials to get information from a private email provider in Switzerland. Okay, not that you're going to be doing anything illegal, right? But it's nice to know that your information is protected.
But you never know, because the law's getting changed every day, so we don't know what we're doing today that could be illegal tomorrow.
That's absolutely true. Now with ProtonMail, what you're going to do is after you get your SafeMail email address, you're going to go over to protonmail.ch. You're going to sign up for their email notification of when their service goes live, and their service is free as well. At least they're touting it as free at this point. Okay. So SafeMail is free. They give you just a few megabytes, but that's all you really need for just text communications. If you're going to do big stuff, then you might have to arrange something else. But I think for most people, some just basic text communication is more than enough.
But then if you want to save stuff, if you want to save stuff like on a drive for SafeMail, or you need more capacity, you need to save more emails and things like that, they have a paid service that you can do that through. But it is free to sign up, and I don't think people understand that Google is making their money. It's not free because they're taking all your information. They're taking all the metadata from every single one of your emails, and they're selling it to private corporations to market to you. And I'm sure when it would be nothing for the CIA or NSA, and they probably already have this, set up a shell marketing corporation, and Google would sell that stuff to them all day long, and they may already be doing it.
Oh, absolutely. And you pay for it with Google with ads. You just pay. You pay through the nose with those stinking blasted ads. YouTube is a great example. YouTube used to be such a great place to go. Now, what? I got to sit through a 30-second commercial to watch a 5-minute clip? This is absolutely ridiculous. You're paying for it. Okay, so take the precaution and wean yourself off of it. Your phone is incredibly insecure. You should do some basic things to try and wean yourself off of that easy access device that's leaching out all your information all day long to your cell provider and to Google and Apple and all these guys. It's a pretty dangerous place to be if Gmail is all you rely on.
And we just volunteer so much information, don't we, through Facebook and other social media sites, that we're just posting up pictures and giving up all our information, and all of this stuff is getting tagged as to the location that it happened and where it was posted, and what your coordinates were for the picture, and what your coordinates were when you posted it, and it's amazing the amount of information that we volunteer, isn't it?
It's mind blowing, absolutely mind blowing, and it keeps getting worse. And people just keep buying into this app culture, and they get this newest app. You get LinkedIn, you get this, or you get that, and you start replying to things on those social media or whatever. Actually, this is really interesting. This is like 2 years ago, up in Maine. I had the opportunity to sit in on the Border Patrol does a little Citizens Academy class where they kind of like sit in and do they show you some neat stuff about just kind of like securing the borders and stuff. It's really cool. But one of the guys said that you guys had to apply to come to this class, and we search social media just like you guys do, and I said, so about the blog? Or I said, or he said, I asked him a question about would it be safe if maybe you had information like a blog or something that you deleted like 2 years ago, and the information still shows up in Google? And he says, I know it does. So even the information you try and delete is still there and accessible on social media. I've deleted Facebook accounts before and gone through the whole process only to log back into that account wondering if my stuff was really deleted, and it hadn't been.
Can't get rid of it.
There's just no way.
You can't get rid of it. The only thing you can do is just quit actively participating in it further. But the first law of holes is quit digging, right?
Yeah.
Now, how does somebody get started with secure chat?
Okay, so and I'll have a link to the instructions to get going on this too. Tails OS has a chat client built in called Pidgin. It's Pidgin. And Pidgin Chat allows you to set up an account and use what's called OTR chat, which is off the record. So once you're in, you can set up, let's say, again, let's go back to email. You set you and your friends up on some secure email, and at the same time, it would be great to open up Pidgin and set up all your accounts so everybody knows what everybody's account is, and you can all put yourselves in each other's address books so that you can see when your friends are online. And this is secure. So this goes through that whole Tor system where it's getting relayed all over the place, and so you just open up your computer, you boot up Tails, you click the little Pidgin icon for your Pidgin chat, and you just happen to see when your people are online, and you click them and you communicate, and it's all encrypted, all off the grid. It's pretty good.
Now, how do you get a phone that doesn't become a de facto government tracking device?
Okay, so phone. This is a sticky one, because everybody tends to just go ahead and want and need to have that Android, that iOS phone. And, for some of us, it's really kind of become, unfortunately, a necessity because of work, and people want to be able to get in touch with you using certain methods and all of that. But you can do it. And one way to do it is to set yourself up another phone to use. Now, again, this sounds all kind of conspiracy, smoke and mirrors, all of this. But listen, it's really easy to do, and it can be cheap. Probably even cheaper than going and getting yourself set up with a track phone or one of these other ones. So I'm going to tell you about this. I'm going to have a link on the page that I give at the end of the show here. So there's a company out there called Ting. Ting is located in Canada. Ting
is that Ting?
Ting. Ting is located in Canada. And Ting is a Sprint MVNO. That's Mobile Virtual Network Operator or something like that, okay? MVNOs do not have to share specific user information about me or any other subscriber to their parent company, Sprint. That information really belongs to Ting. Now, that's not to say that they're not susceptible by, normal search and seizure requests by, law enforcement, and they want to look up the records from a company. But certainly having a company that's in Canada adds a whole nother layer onto this, because most everybody around has either got a Sprint, Verizon, US Cellular, something on the homeland, right? So it's cheap. This is really cheap to do, okay? You can get a Ting phone. You can buy a Sprint phone that's on Ting's Bring Your Own Device list, and you can register it, and you could use your SafeMail email account. You could use your alias that you use, whatever. You can get this thing set up. You could use a prepaid card to get this thing going. And just to have that device connected on Ting's network, you don't use it at all, is only $6 a month. There's no plan. You only pay for minutes or data or whatever if you use it, okay? So Ting, and I would highly suggest getting a really basic flip phone or a really basic bar phone, one of the old feature phone things, and I've got a list of those on the site that I'm going to give at the end here. So I've got a list of all of them and where you can find them on eBay. You want to get one with a clean ESN to make sure that you can activate it, but you're only talking about $6 a month investment here. Now, some of you out there might be like, man, $6 a month just to have the phone. You're going to find, after you look at Ting's site and compare their pricing, you're going to find that they're really competitive. My wife and I have 3 smartphones on a plan that costs us $60 a month, something like that. We don't use data very often. We use it mostly for just texting and voice. So some of you out there are going to be like, man, I'm going to do that to my main phone too, which would be a great idea and a great way to take advantage of some savings. I'm going to give you a link that gives you $25 off either a Ting device from Ting store or $25 in service credits. So if you're only using $6 a month just to keep a phone in your glove box, then that'll last you a few months. So it's really cheap. So if you were going to just use 100 minutes, 100 text messages on a clean phone that you're just going to boot up occasionally, you're talking only $12 a month. So great, cheap way to get a phone on something that you don't have to worry about, like with a track phone. Oh man, I forgot to activate it. I forgot to do this. I forgot to renew my minutes, and now I lost my phone number. You don't have to worry about any of that stuff. So if you want to keep a phone clean, here's the thing. No smartphones, okay? So your backup phone, the emergency communications device that you're creating here is not going to be an Android. It's not going to be an iPhone. It's going to be like an old Motorola V3M flip phone, or it's going to be one of those Nokia 3588s, one of those older Nokia phones, right? It's going to be maybe a Kyocera flip phone, something like that, or an LG LX series phone, or Samsung M series phone. And I've got a list of all of these in the link I'm going to give you.
Awesome.
You take advantage of that. You take advantage of that code, and I will tell you, I am an agent with them. So I've handled quite a few transfers of people trying to get started. Ting offers an ETF, early termination fee program, so they can help you even get out of your existing contract. And man, I never want to go back to a contract again. I am so happy not having to pay them through the nose just because I want the latest, greatest phone. And now I'm only paying like $60 a month for 3 smartphones. So then you just add your emergency phone on maybe a prepaid card, and get yourself at least one phone device that you can communicate with off the grid. Once you get a phone number, of course, you're going to share that with your buddies in your Safe Mail or Proton Mail account, so that or Pigeon, to make sure that that's not anywhere else out there.
So, a lot of fantastic advice, Dana. Now, tell us how folks can get in touch with you. Give us all those links. And then also, you said you're going to put together a few of the Tails OS flash drives for me to check out.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Don't let me forget that, right?
And those are going to be available. We're gonna do a big giveaway every time I come out with a new book. We do a big giveaway. And so when the Days of Noah book 2, which, like I said, is going to be called Persecution, which is exactly what we've been talking about and talking about avoiding, that's going to be out in March. And so we'll be doing a big giveaway for that. And some of these we'll be giving away. Each winner will get one of these flash drives that's preloaded with the Tails OS. But for the folks that can't wait and they need one right now, you're also going to tell us how they can get that.
Yeah. So when those go on, they're going to be, well, when this broadcast is aired, they'll be there. And I'll be doing those in batches. Okay. So if somebody wants to buy a 4 gigabyte key for $20 that's already built with the Tails on it, or a 16 gigabyte for $30, you're going to go to itechcentral.com, ITECH central.com. And I'll have a link on there to those to a probably like a PayPal form or something that you can fill out right there and get that shipped to you. Okay, so that's how you're going to get that. And there'll be like the 2 options there for just the 4 gigabyte and 16 gigabyte key. All right, for a USB drive. Okay, for getting a hold of me personally, I will give you my email address, Dana, D-A-N-A, at livetherun.com, livetherun.com. You can go to livetherun.com for more of the spiritual side of my blogging. You can go to itechcentral.com for more of the technical stuff that I blog on. And here's a link that only people who listen to this is not live. You cannot search it on the web. You cannot get it that way. It's a site I just set up just for you guys who are listening, all right? So this one's set up through tinyURL. So you're going to go to this tinyURL link, and it's going to forward you over to a site, okay? So this link is tinyurl.com/alpha-comms. That's tinyurl.com/alpha, A-L-P-H-A, comms, C-O-M-M-S. And you're going to hit enter, and it's going to take you right over to a site that I've developed just for you guys that covers all this information in its entirety, with the links and shortcuts to do this stuff, and video clips and all sorts of great stuff for your listeners. So those are the best ways to get in touch.
Dana, thanks so much for all the valuable information and for making time to be on the show.
Yeah, and I hope your giveaway goes great. You got 10 little 4 gigabyte USB flash drives on their way. They were shipped yesterday, so you'll have those before this airs. And they're all ready to go. And there's one in there for you, too. I threw in a 16 gigabyte for you, one of the larger keys, one of the metal ones. so that you can get on and start messing around with this stuff yourself. So thank you guys so much for having me on. This has been great. And just if you have any questions, email me.
Thanks again, and God bless.
Hey, thank you so much. God bless.
Are we living in a time of which there is more prophetic writings than of any period in history? Watch through the eyes of Noah Parker and his family as a global empire takes shape. Ancient writings are fulfilled, and the last days fall upon the once great United States of America. The Days of Noah, Book 1, Conspiracy by Mark Goodwin, is a fast-paced fiction thriller which looks at how modern conspiracies could play into biblical prophecy concerning end times. Buy The Days of Noah in paperback, Kindle, or audio edition at Amazon.com today.